Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Challenge Battle of the Eras Season 40 RHAP podcast for Episode 6. I am Brian Cohen. With me, as always, is my co-host, Ali Lasher. Ali, how are you?
Vibing. I'm thinking to myself, looking at this, like, no one comment, I don't care what you think, but like, it's amazing how quickly I stopped caring about what I show up like on this podcast.
That was always a big thing. It's like, oh my God, I have to prepare, do the hair, do the and all the things. Now, here we go. Go Cubs, go, baby. Here we are.
Yeah, I'm really cooling on these video podcasts, but I'm here.
Yeah, I'm rocking an old school NBA Jam shirt. We're just like,
Oh, my brother has that shirt.
Regular stuff, We're just like regular folk. We don't need to be all so dressy.
3-0 in fantasy football.
We are with 3-0. Dominating the RHAP fantasy football league right now.
Are we number one?
I would think so. Let's see. Live check. Is there another 3-0 team in the RHAP fantasy football league? Can I get some checking fantasy football league music?
Well, music, my voice is melodic. Who did we just beat?
Can I get some checking who we just beat music?
I ask because I would like to know when we play Jordan Kalish so that I could talk my shit.
So Jordan Kalish, speaking of, is also 3-0.
Oh, perfect.
So
shit
look out for that.
Energy.
We just beat the Great Puya.
Oh, I would have talked shit to Puya. Come on.
So, big matchup coming down the pike with Jordan Kalish.
Doing a lot of things on the fly here. I think I have the wrong tone. No, none of them are good. Okay. Okay, one day I do want to release the colors here, but today's not the day because I thought this was a great episode. I know I'm doing like a lot, like especially on the heels of last week's episode. This was like a breath of fresh air, a breath of fresh air.
Interesting, because I thought this was the first time I'm like, oh, this is dragging. I'm like, this. If this was like on Netflix and they had flexibility of the times, like this could have been an hour. No, this did not need the full hour and a half. It felt like there was a lot of conversations that were just like, yeah, we got this. We believe in each other. There was just a lot of like everything in my notes was like, ooh, this person hyping up this person. And it's like, can we just yada yada and get to the elimination or something here?
That's interesting. I'm gonna do just like a live change here on pod. That's interesting. I liked it because I think I was just so refreshed from last week. And obviously, like by comparison to last week, and obviously, like a lot happened since we last spoke. And honestly, like people are like, oh, because you guys didn't hear it, you record early, whatever. Once again, am happy to have like missed the like week of chatter and speculation about what occurred. I think like I largely stand by what we said last week. For anyone, again, who's using us, unfortunately, as your only source of challenge news, like what transpired is Cara released a TikTok video saying that, according to Cara, Laurel mimicked abuse that Cara had faced and that didn't make air. And that was sort of like the escalation of the fight. Why MTV didn't include it, whether they should have included it, sort of above my pay grade. But I do think they accurately captured the tone, which was, yes, Cara picks, but Laurel takes it over the top to a bad place. And I think, I stand by that interpretation. Like, I think Laurel took it to a bad place.
Are we surprised? This is kind of a tangent, but not really. Are we surprised MTV allows them so openly to talk about things that don't make air while the season is airing? Like Survivor, I feel like outside of like exit press, you're not really allowed to like talk about what doesn't happen. Obviously, that's kind of spoilery, maybe for Who Goes Far. But it just feels odd that every week it's like the entire cast just like releases like the unaired footage about what happens and what they're not seeing. Like if they're allowing that, why don't they just take ownership of it and like bring back like a live after show and just let them live talk about things that aren't shown and all this stuff? It just feels weird that it's like you have to go to all these other sources and like follow like every single person about what's they're all saying. Why can't MTV like, get this all together, maybe like a prepackaged post show thing?
So all I can say is just putting together pieces that I've heard from challengers. Obviously, I know nothing about this. You know nothing about this, et cetera, et cetera. Tori, I think, said last week or whenever with the Horacio Derek thing, and I think we've heard this from challengers before, is like the rules that they have are they can talk about things as they experience them, but they can't like attack product, whatever. Like they can speak to their own experience. Like I think it probably would be like a bad look if people were like, I was silenced by television, or like reality TV, which I think people have accused reality TV producers of and other shows have done. So I think we're also seeing a product of what happens when the reality TV contestants have sort of bargaining power with the network. Like, again, our production company, I don't know this. I would just speculate, like, Tori's got more leverage than a first-time Survivor player who, like, would love to play again and would die to play again. So, like, it may also just be somewhat self-policing, more acting sort of buttoned up under your NDA when you, like, want something out of it versus, like, a Nerys, a Tori, who the network or production needs. I don't know, but I agree. Like, it is a little weird to like have to wake up the next day and be like, okay, so what really happened? Like, we've said this for years. We're watching the show. I'm glad Cara can like speak her truth, but we have the show we have.
Yeah, because obviously, like, if people in like 5 years they're watching the show for the first time, streaming it, they binge through it. They're not gonna like, all right, episode 6. Let me pause. Let me do some like specific Googling. All right, what was happening on like everyone's social media on like September 24th or whatever, and see what they all were saying to like get the true story about what happened that week. It's just interesting of like you almost have to watch these like the challenge live, which I guess is good for the show. It's it forcing people to try to watch it like when it's happening to get the full story of what happens in the season. Because once it's gone, it's like gone. It's like live feeds. Like if you don't experience it for like Big Brother, like there's no way to like understand what was happening during that season.
Yeah, or you watch the package you have, right, for better or worse.
Yeah.
Like, we're watching the episode we have, and then we later hear about the drama over the next 6 days. If we didn't hear about that, and I don't mean to dismiss it as drama in this instance, but just in general, like the Horacio and Derek, like if I watched that 5 years from now and had never seen what happened, that would have whoop, okay, great. Like Derek won. That seemed photo finish. Like
on to the next. All right. Derek broke his leg. No, he didn't. He's fine. Okay, on to the next. I don't know.
The other thing that's interesting about this, and this just comes from Cara's TikTok again. I know nothing about this. It's all from the contestants. Like Cara, I think, speculated in her TikTok that production didn't air this because they can't, because it's like allegations and more complicated than just like something that looks bad on Laurel. We've seen production not air things that have been unsavory for the people who do them, that would be difficult for the people who experience them. Or I get that if it's sort of it's an allegation could put them in a legal situation that maybe they don't mind if Cara speaks on, but they don't want to be involved.
Right.
Shrug.
All possibility. Who knows? What we do know is no, go ahead. I was going to make a
step on your transition.
Yeah, I was just going to try to make a segue to the start of the episode. But if you got one more thing, drop the one more thing.
One more thing we have to talk about from last week is like a lot of people, and not like the Horacio of it all, but like a lot of viewers, people in the Facebook group are, and other contestants like Bananas are saying that Tina's nails were not hammered in the whole way. Have you seen this?
I have seen that. That seems like the new, someone was pushed or all this. It's getting so frustrating. It's like, I don't know. These are all gimmicky games. It can't all be uniform. Like even you watch a sport, I don't know. The ball was like deflated a little bit. It was like this or that. I don't know. Just take it for what it is.
Wow.
Like I guess if they should have the same person nailing the things, on each side. I can't get that aggravated over every single elimination not being perfectly thing. The only thing you get perfectly right, you want them just to look at box and fight each other. Sure. That could be like perfectly down the middle fair. Whoever gets knocked out first loses. Other than that, there's going to be some nuance to all these games and stuff. It's like, oh, the sand was like heavier on this side of this dirt, and that's why this person slipped. It's like, you lost. Emily lost. That's it.
Yeah, so, I mean, look, is it a little sus that like nobody else of the three could do what Tina could do? Perhaps. Is it sus that's like, oh, the women on Era 1 are down to just 2 women, and if it went down to 1 woman, it would like break the format of this? Maybe. don't tell me we've waited all this time for Emily to come back, through horrible scandal to now of like one of the most anticipated female returnees in general, not to everyone, that they're like cool throwing the elimination,
Right.
rigging it so that Tina wins to sustain their format that they probably don't care if breaks anyway, because they never care. I don't buy it. You will never, to quote the women of the toast, they will never make me believe that this was rigged. You will never make me think that Tina doesn't need a home improvement show. You will never make me think that she isn't the most skilled craftswoman in the game. And I think her nails were even hammered further in than anyone else's. And she just has the innate ability to strip nails from a wall. How dare you?
No, she killed it. Don't take that one away from Tina. And Emily was doing some like conversations I saw. And, this got me even more frustrated. She was like, again, this is going back to my original point about I don't want more physical stuff. She's like, oh, it needs to be more like a sport and like that's what I feel like. Again, I feel like I'm living in a Twilight Zone. I feel like people have complained about the show becoming too much like a sport for years.
In fairness, she's been in a van for like 8 years. I don't know that she's been watching or on the Twitter streets.
It needs to be. We need to be taken more seriously. It needs to be like a sport. It's like no, it should be like a good like physical like competition. Yes, it should be like a step above like a thing like Big Brother, but also it should be entertainment and it should be like something's fun and something's physical and something's gimmicky and something's impressive. Like it should be a variety pack. So you lost, Emily. Sorry.
Both to Emily, you lost, Emily, and the audience. You lost Emily, sorry.
You did.
All right, you want to make your segue now, or did we step on it too hard?
Kind of stepped on it, but it's okay. What wasn't stepped on was Era 1's resiliency to only having 5 people and how they wanted to keep all their people.
Slay. One thing to just backpedal a little bit, we got to see Evelyn on season 40, just in the flashback. Again, I've been watching this, and I think for no reason and to no avail, because like, it's Evelyn before a challenge and Rivals saying that this is going to get dirty. Players are going to bleed. And it's like, okay, is this because like Derek breaks his leg? But then we never hear back about the leg. So I just like, I don't understand these. You know what it reminds me of? And this is a deep cut just for myself. But I did a dossier on the challenge for Max Dawson's reality TV class. And before like every section, I like put a quote that I loved from the challenge, and it really had nothing to do with the section it was introducing. It was just like a quote I found funny. Like I did use like every time Evelyn loses a challenge and Angel gets its wings. And that's pretty much this. It's just like a clip they wanted to use that like maybe ooh, someone gets muddy in the challenge. Let's use this clip of Evelyn saying things are gonna get dirty. I guess better than a spoiler, but it's puzzling me.
It is puzzling. We got a little bit of like a fallout with Laurel and Cara. Again, like the big sister, little sister act. I'm glad we kind of put a pause on it for this episode. Everyone could take a breather, get away from that from a little bit. Of course, we have Bananas chiming in, but not much of the Cara Laurel stuff this week, which was nice.
Well, no surprise Bananas chiming in with Laurel because, it's a little bit what happened with Bananas and Devin. Devin poked and Bananas like dropped a hammer on his head, and that's one of words. And that's what's happening here. I mean, different, whatever. But just to keep tracking this fault chain, if we're going to keep seeing it, like Cara's there like folding her clothes, and Laurel's like to Aviv, like, you have kids, you know what it's like to have children with red hair. Just like huffing and puffing around after the elimination.
Yeah.
Boo.
Just waiting for the next instance. Yeah, not great.
So we get kind of like a meeting between the eras as we work our way to the daily, and era 4 meets up, and Jenny's like, why did no one volunteer? And it's like, really only Michelle would really have been in that. And I do want to correct something from last week. I was sort of like, why did Nehemiah put Jenny up? Jenny did put Nehemiah up, that Facebook let us know. So fair enough. But Michelle in classic Michelle, Survivor Michelle mode, like, if it were me, I'd probably do the same thing, but I would ideally like to say nothing while Jenny addresses the whole crowd and doesn't call me out directly. Like, Michelle can't help but pipe in and be like, well, you're going in with Josh, and Josh has a lot of good connections. Like, Michelle, shut up. You should be in with Josh. Like, you don't have to talk her off the ledge here.
Yeah, Michelle, she does always have something to say, which she usually is able to get out of it because she has that social charm. But she probably could avoid a lot of these situations if she also just didn't say like that one extra thing. Just let her vent. Like just let Jenny vent and then talk about her behind her back or something like that. You don't need to say it to her and be like overly sharing. But that's Michelle. That's how she's a great reality TV character.
Like Casey does, who says nothing and then completely dogs her in the confessional of like, she has no connection. She's so boring. She only talks about snacks, guinea pigs, and working out, which is like, if those are her areas of interest, how else are you supposed to build social relationships?
Mm-hmm. Also, that's 3 more things that we know about Casey. She's been on like 20 seasons of reality TV at this point.
Burn. Boom roasted. So then Josh and Tori kind of like meet up in secret, which is like, I want to Mitch watch the Vacation Alliance, I think, because it's like, why are they like in this secret little wall? I've been watching The House a lot. Like, it's like when Theo and Kyland and Laurel were talking in that like hallway of a kitchen with like that slant roof that Theo barely fit under. Like now
we need
in like
the blueprints. We need the blueprints.
I'd like to see.
I want to map it out.
That work on that, please, because I think that's more your skill set than mine. But so they're in like an alcove outside, like whispering basically about like locking in the 2 of them, Devin, Casey, and then they think they have Rachel, Jordan, and Bananas, maybe. Just echoes a conversation we've had about them. But then they do what I will admit is a very cool handshake to solidify the Vacation Alliance.
I agree. I hated that. I loved it. It was very cool. Like the V and the A. It was a cool handshake. The haters might hate it, but I think it fit well.
I'm ready to hate them, but I will admit that this was a cool handshake. But it just magnified how irritating it was that Josh, like, prompted by no one, was like, why does everyone think we're in the Vacation Alliance? It was very Big Brother of him, honestly. Everyone's going back to their roots.
And honestly, them leaning into being the Vacation Alliance has made them more likable in my eyes than they've been in a while. Like I almost like to see this like kind of devious side of Tori and not like showboaty-ish and like over the top. Like she's acknowledging they're in an alliance and like they're friends and like they're working together. And does she not like portraying in something that's not? She's like leaning into it. And I think this is a good look for Tori. I like this version.
See, this is fascinating because I think last week or two, whenever Josh and Tori were going off of like, why does everyone think just because like we have friends, we're in an alliance, that makes the fact that they are like whispering around and pretending like everyone's dumb more annoying because like you're really only shining a spotlight on it by screaming about it. And that's more Josh than Tori. Certainly. Do we need a handshake?
Ooh, that's a good question. We don't really have what would be our the brand, like a handshake to like challenge wrap up? Like,
I mean, a handshake doesn't need like a verbal,
I guess so,
portion. You think on it.
Let it best.
Noodle on it.
Noodle.
All right, let's go to the Era 1 conference. Brad has completely resigned himself to thinking they're going to be the selection, which is, I think, Brad's best game sense move of the season.
To be fair, though, that was kind of the sentiment of like every era. It was like, if we're in the middle, we're 100% going to be voted in. Which, to be fair, it's like a 50-50 chance. So it's a good chance you are going to be voted in if you're in the middle. It's almost hard to avoid it. But that would seem to be like everyone's sentiment was, well, if I have us there, we're definitely getting voted in. But Brad was also very much like, yeah, we're screwed.
That's fair. And maybe it was a terrible read on Brad's part because really it's like their team is 100% going to be in last place. So they will not be the pick.
Right. Also, I think because they are so like down in numbers, maybe they would be spared. It's like, oh, we don't have to worry about them. We have to try to get out an Era 3, Era 4, Era 2 person. So I would think they would probably be least likely to be voted in.
It's a good point. And then it's like, is the incentive to have just one GOAT team? So you're like never the one in the bottom versus like evening it out. I don't know.
I guess we'll never know because they always lose. So we don't know.
And then Era 3, I love how Corey was just like, it was the worst possible move to not volunteer and then get picked anyway.
And I feel like if someone wants to comment on bad moves, Corey, I feel like is a good one to like, yeah, that was a bad move. I
do think he's in jeopardy of being the target either way based on his own like lack of connections. Like, I don't know who, unless like Derek like was in power somehow. Like, I don't know how Janae leads to them being spared. So like, and Corey doesn't have that deep of connection. So he really, those in glass houses of lacks of connection shouldn't throw stones, but those in glass connection shouldn't throw stones. But he is right that I think he's right to be concerned that his own team would be willing to throw the challenge because of whatever perception of Janae. Or at least they wouldn't be motivated to fight as hard because like Corey and Janae are not like the numbers 1 and 2 for the team.
Yeah. It seemed like not a lot of people are even hinting at like the throwing outside of like Laurel obviously has talked about it and Cara has hinted at it here, but they couldn't follow through. I thought there would almost be more conversations around, is this a good week to throw? Should we get this person out? We really haven't seen it that much outside of like Laurel kind of talking about it.
I wonder if that's a symptom of like, yeah, at best it might be like a subconscious, like, do I really need to kill myself on this challenge? Like, I might need some of my strength, whatever. But yeah, I wonder if it's a symptom of having like the quote unquote trim the fat purge. Like, there wasn't a lot of fat on this team, on this cast to be trimmed. It was all pretty physical competitors, pretty smart. But everyone's well rounded, or everyone has a strength. But then they took like the 8 quote unquote weakest people and eliminated them. So like maybe we'd see more throwing if Amanda was still on a team, if Katie was still on a team. No disrespect to those fine ladies, but
kind of disrespect, but yeah.
I respect it. I respect that they might have, but I respect it.
Yeah.
I still respect them. I respect them more than some people who they wouldn't throw the challenge to get rid of. How about that? And I'll name those people now. No. Okay. You have to defend your girl for me here, because this conversation between Nehemiah and Janae, I got to tell you, spoiler alert, and not think it was a good look for your girl.
Yeah, I mean, the whole episode wasn't that great. It was a rough season, I guess, for Janae. Not a lot of progress, or like not a lot of built on of like, oh, she actually is like a superstar in this game. Based off our All-Stars. It's a bad season. It's a bad result for All-Stars, really, so far. I feel like a lot of the All-Star stars are not doing too hot. I guess Nehemiah maybe is the one so far. But like Janae has a conversation with Nehemiah. I guess she feels it goes back to Nehemiah's decision not to vote Janae in to one of the All-Stars, and then Nehemiah then lost that final. Janae feels that played a part in him wanting to vote her in. I don't know if that really mattered. I just think Nehemiah just didn't have a good relationship with Janae at this point.
That was the weirdest argument I've ever seen. Like, so I thought she was saying, Nehemiah thinks he would have won All-Stars if I wasn't there. And I'm like, didn't Darrell and Janelle like reportedly win that season, if not for a technicality? Like, so I'm like, I don't even think Nehemiah was in second place in that season, was he?
I don't think so. Maybe at some point.
Confusing it? No, because Darrell and Janelle wouldn't have been paired another time. And then it's like, I don't think he like saved you and MJ. He was probably more threatened by Darrell and Janelle, and that's why he put them in. Like, I don't know if it was like he saved you. But even if he did, even if Janae was done a favor by Nehemiah, in what world does that mean he owes her another favor now? Where he's like, I thought he wouldn't say my name because in a past season, he didn't say my name. Well, what have you done like for him? So I was just like, I don't think that this like guilt trip on Nehemiah is quite appropriate.
Yeah, the logic didn't seem to be there. And this probably should have been more of a conversation before Nehemiah was making a decision. Again, like kind of what we saw with Devin, or Nehemiah talking to Devin, like, even though that blew up in his face, at least he had the timing right of like approaching him before decisions had to be made. I feel like Janae probably should have had a conversation with Nehemiah before he was making a decision. I don't like after the fact. Who cares? The decision has been made. You're a target. Like, I don't know what you want to do.
So while you're on the stand here defending your people,
did Avery do something?
Stand wins.
I don't think she spoke.
No, yeah, we're gonna talk about your boy Bananas.
Oh,
because then Jenny and Bananas link up. And, Bananas, I guess, and Jenny are really close. And Bananas is starting to, like, build the case against Michelle. And that, like, or really, Jenny, like, you're going to keep helping your team win. You're getting nothing in return. Michelle and Devin are a dangerous pair, which I agree with.
Mm-hmm.
And then Bananas loses me in what I can only assume is a pretty sexist, motivated rant,
Him,
where
no,
he's like,
that's not doesn't sound like him.
he's like, Devin somehow is getting credit for Michelle not self-nominating. I didn't realize that Michelle was a marionette puppet controlled by Devin.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, also Michelle won Survivor. Like Michelle has done more strategically and earned more money for her strategy than
Right.
Devin has in all of his challenge. And then wants to tell Michelle that Devin is just using her for the game. Like, on what planet? Devin is so lucky to be with Michelle. And he told us this in his confessional about it. And like, that's great. What is Bananas doing who dates like women who aren't into him? Like, what is
Mm-hmm.
he, what leg does he have to stand on? What business does he have to stand on to say this about Devin and Michelle?
It was really out of pocket because, as Devin notes, I felt like him and Bananas were on pretty good terms. And I thought, as Michelle noted, her and Bananas were on pretty good terms. So there's not even like these are two people now all of a sudden conspiring against him. I mean, I guess there's now two people who are not as close to him anymore, theoretically, because they're close to each other, but they were also friends anyway. So it felt so bizarre that he would really just try to be like sparking some things. And this was like the produce. This is like the most positive spin zone I could put on this. Was this like the Bananas producer brand being like, "Oh, this will be a fun storyline. Let me see if I can cause some strife between Devin and Michelle and stir up a fight and have them come at me and da da da." Because other than that, it was completely out of pocket for him to be like, "Oh, she's using or you're using Devin's using Michelle's using you, Devin." Some like it was bizarre.
Yeah, it definitely was. I think Bananas later in the episode when Devin confronts him, and kudos to Devin and Michelle for going to bed and sleeping on it before
Great
alcohol
call.
becomes the enemy and confronting them. I mean, I'd like to see that.
Unbelievable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Given the context of like the show that they're in and everything going on, 1,000 to 1 odds that wasn't going to escalate into a big fight that night. Kudos to them.
I was like, here we go. Bananas and Laurel are about to get thrown in as a result of the fight that's
Right.
going to transpire between Devin and Bananas. And yet, unbelievably, Devin goes to bed. I love Michelle being like, let's just think about what you're going to say before you say it. And he's like,
Yeah.
well, I just have to say something. He's like,
Right.
oh, okay, let's think about it. And then they go to bed. Great.
And the alcohol was
A+
slow because
move.
Michelle very much had like the drunk eyes going. Like she very much had like the glossy look that like alcohol was a factor that night. And it was crazy. They both there, but they're separate ways.
Well, that's none of my business. But but like, no. So when they do eventually confront Bananas, I think Bananas says like the quiet part out loud. Like he says his motivation is what he said, which is like, I just wanted to check in and make sure that when you, Devin, come for me, which I know you will, that Michelle won't necessarily automatically vote against me because you've told her to. And it's like, okay, there's the motivation. I know as well as everyone knows. And Devin even says, yeah, of course, bro. Like, of course, the men are going to have to start coming for Bananas at some point. CT's already gone. Like, we're going to come for you soon when the timing is right, as we've all done this dance before. And Bananas looks around and sees like some people he thought he could have counted on, Michelle, Josh, might really be more in Devin's pocket and be able to be rallied to turn against him. So kind of petty, kind of immature. Yes, his move is like, let me start sowing seeds of doubt so that I don't normally like automatically have these votes against me. Insane decision. Insane to then kind of imply she's a liar. Like, what motivation on earth would Michelle have to lie about this? Just a bad move by the Banana Man.
Yeah. And then kudos to Olivia. Validates that everything Bananas is saying is not true, but does it to us and doesn't insert herself into the drama. A lot of like sensible play that's going on this week. Not, not fun, because if she said something, it could have sparked even more of a fun, dramatic argument. But smart by her. Olivia had her time in the sun with drama this season, trying to stay out of it. Smart by her to just validate us. Yeah, Bananas definitely said that 1,000%. But I'm not going to say that right now. I'll just say it to you. So I appreciate that, Olivia.
Yeah, I think Olivia does like pick her spots, like it's almost like when she didn't tell anybody about like the Jay hookup and then it like got exposed and she still was like sitting there silently until she like had to say something. So yeah, like she's definitely got a little bit of that Nerys in her of the like, I'm gonna keep this information and see when I need to use it, if at all, or I'll tell Michelle in private, like where it can't come back on me.
Yeah. Good job by her.
And I'm really excited to talk about this daily. I thought, love it or hate it, it's still the obsession. No, it was a very like innovative challenge for the challenge.
Well, before we go to the daily, let's take a quick break. All right, we're
I'm
back.
excited. I was gonna respond. Great.
We're back. Yeah, got to the daily. Very interesting one, as you noted. What was it called? Like get nailed or
Cloud
something?
Catcher.
Cloud catcher.
Get nailed. Yep.
Cloud catcher. You have to run out in groups of 3 to collect a big balloon, and transport it back. Well, big balloon's a key. It's very big.
Huge balloon.
A huge balloon.
Huge.
You have to navigate it back. You have to specifically get through like an underpass that had like big giant nails that are just ready to pop this balloon at any second. Also, apparently, the wind gets too strong, could pop the balloon at any second. But get the balloons back, attach it to a platform to lift it up, to reveal a riddle, solve the riddle, and then you finish. But the riddle, not really that important, because it really just came down to who brought back the most balloons. So I don't really know why we had the riddle, but that's okay. I guess as a tiebreaker. But the most important thing was who brought the most balloons back.
Yeah. So there are a couple of things about this. Like, I liked that they did a little bit of a modifier for Era 1 where like only 3 people could run out at a time to get balloons. So like they're good on them for that. Like
my silly brain, by the way, was very confused when TJ said that. I thought the entire challenge was just 3 people. And I was like, oh, why do we get to see who's deciding to do the 3? I would love to know that conversation. And then I'm like, oh, I'm an idiot. They swap every time. That makes more sense.
It's gonna be a Soph, Raven, and Zara. No, I mean, it is true. When I first started too, I was like, oh, are only 3 people doing the balloon portion and then 2 people are doing the riddle portion. But like, yeah, I think how it worked was a perfect sort of disadvantage for Era 1 because you could get tired or you could break your leg and you still have to go out and get the balloons. But yeah, just like, and I thought it was innovative. I thought it was interesting. I don't know why we're setting it up where like, it's like that challenge that they had to get those water pouches in the bobsled last year, like the luge and all-stars. Like, why is it the most balloons in the shortest amount of time and the riddle? Like, first, can it just be you have to get 6 total balloons, and then when you complete the 6 balloons, no matter how many times it takes you to run back, if they pop, then you move on to the riddle? Why do we have to trust, like, or just really, have no momentum with the end result of the challenge? I was like, Era 3 wins, solves it first. Era 4 wins. Bummer. Bummer on the momentum.
Or just have it be you get as many balloons as you need to once you lift the platform and reveal the puzzle. That's it. Whoever finishes the riddle first. It was also weird that everyone had the same riddle. I feel like
also very strange.
They all should have had different riddles. I guess there's no real motivation to help the other era because you don't know how many balloons they got anyway. But it was just bizarre that everyone had the same riddle. That didn't make much sense also.
Yeah, and they didn't seem like they were being quiet about it. Because, like, yeah, like you'll see on Survivor, like they have the same word puzzle, but they're like blinders or they're protecting it or being careful. Like they were just like, I think it's fire. I think it's gonna be fire.
Yeah, they were not shy. Also, it sort of makes sense, but this was a bad riddle. Like, I think, did I write it down? It's what was the riddle? It was
I wrote it if you want it. Yeah.
I think it's I'm always hungry. I must be fed. The finger
always
I touch. What is I'm always be fed?
I must always be fed.
Must always be fed. The finger I touch will turn red. Like, kudos for the rhyme, sure. But like that seems like a stretch. Like a fire has to be fed. I mean, I guess it does, but like to feed the fire, I don't know. It's like not like the most clever riddle. I don't like it. I think it's like a C-.
Yeah, it was very solvable. We'll say that. I mean, I think that I'm always hungry doesn't make sense. Like, it's really just like, what's something you feed that burns your hand? Like, oh, the fire. I agree. It was pretty weak off of what could have been a cool, like, seeming challenge. This was, to me, a nice sort of center of the Venn diagram between, like, form and function. Like, it looked cool and goofy. And, like, I just really like those big balloons. But I think the most interesting thing to me of this challenge is like what Cara was going to do. And I guess Ryan, in a sense, was going to do, where Laurel and Bananas are in jeopardy And Laurel does this again, like hostile. I apologize to the entire team. I did not want it to get to that level. And Cara's like, I thought about throwing this, but I don't stoop to her level. It's not in my character to throw challenges.
Mm-hmm.
Should Cara have thrown this challenge to spite Laurel?
1000%. And I don't think you would get a more easy challenge to throw, especially the way it was structured, which is like needing the balloons. She should just run out on the field and just just like pop the ball. Like it would have been so easy to do. Of all the challenges, this is like one of the easiest in the history of the show that one person could throw. Now, I guess theoretically, like if she starts doing that, like if someone else is out there, can like tackle her to the ground and like bring her back and like not let her go out again, theoretically. But like if she's out there, she can just pop all the balloons. If then if Ryan also wanted to help, if Derek wanted to help, they could have easily have thrown this challenge. And I think she absolutely should have. Like it's not like Cara. There would be, to me, there'd be some doubt if Laurel and Bananas didn't throw her in that first week. Because in her mind, she could then rationalize, like, yes, we hate each other, but for this, we have to keep winning. Obviously, like, I'm good for the team. Laurel's good for the team. No one's going to do anything stupid. Like, we're going to try to win. They very clearly showed that any chance they get, they're going to try to throw Cara in. They did it from the jump, from episode 1, when you know the teams are going to be in place for at least 4, 5, 6 weeks. Now you're getting to the point where the teams might end. You absolutely should have thrown this. And I understand like the competitive spirit, yada, 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 but it was a ridiculous move not to try to throw this.
So I don't think she thought about this, and I don't mean to like undermine it. Like I do believe Cara that she's just like, I'm a competitor. I go out to win. I'm not going to throw the challenge, which, whatever. Maybe there's like a rational argument for it of like, the worst thing that could happen is Laurel goes in and wins. She will automatically be the target versus Rachel, Janae, and Jenny almost certainly will not put, in my mind, Cara up as the nomination, as like the target. And like, you're really giving Laurel an opportunity of power. And she kind of thinks the whole house is interested in putting them up. And I think like, if it wasn't Jenny and Josh who won, I do think Corey and Janae and Brad and Rachel both would have put Laurel and Bananas into the elimination regardless. Mm-hmm. So maybe she thought she didn't need to like escalate it. But yeah, again, I think it really was just more of a competitive spirit thing.
But even like, let's say, Cara doesn't throw this. Let's say like Laurel's in the middle. She gets voted in. Laurel's picking Cara as the target still, I think. At that point, right? No matter what.
Yeah, no, she is, but maybe, whatever. Like, at least she didn't have a hand in throwing the challenge. I don't know. Whatever.
I thought you were going to say the most interesting part was we have a player screaming, I broke my leg. And there is not a medic in sight. I don't understand how
Tina screams medical.
Like, get a medic. He is screaming he broke his leg, and we don't have a single Band-Aid, anything. Anywhere, and this guy's hopping around a mud pit with one leg, and it's just like, oh, that's just Derek. He's just powering through a broken leg. It's like, oh, okay, sure, that's what he's doing.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if like the player themselves has to request medical, and like Derek, God bless him.
I feel like him screaming, I broke my leg, is saying I need a medic. Like, I don't know. I feel like that's.
I don't know.
Jump to.
I must have Jeff had to ask Andy if he needed medical while he was like writhing on the ground.
I guess. At least he got water and shade. Derek didn't get anything.
I just would like to check in on Derek's leg. I don't know why I was kind of thinking at the elimination, because we hadn't heard about it, we were going to get like a TJ being like, Derek, we're pulling you from the game. Right. Like, I just couldn't believe we'd let the episode go by and not check in on Derek's broken leg.
Not even an x-ray after. Like, does he think there's something wrong? He doesn't want to like go get it checked out because he's going to be pulled. I don't know. It's just bizarre that it's just never talked about again.
I have to believe that Derek's leg is not broken. Like, I have to believe.
I mean, is it even Chekhov's broken? Like, a broken leg, I don't think it's Chekhov. Like, if it's broken leg, it's going to come back eventually. I don't know.
I don't know. There's Chekhov's nothing in the challenge. It's like, because I feel like we get unresolved things that it's like Evelyn's thing was Chekhov's nothing. Like, we didn't hear anything about this.
I mean, since his leg, I guess, is not broken, was it just a little bit like crybaby-itis? Like, he just is screaming in agony.
Bro, a bad sprain, hitting your leg wrong is like Brutes McGoods.
But if you're fine to then continue the challenge and not get pulled.
He was hopping around. He wasn't like fine. He wasn't like skipping around, clicking his heels.
I guess it's just bizarre.
He was
that
crawling,
it just,
which did help him get through the balloon tunnel.
The balloons were funny. Were you surprised the balloons? I know they're like doing this. They didn't have like faces on them or logos on them or anything like that. They were just like plain white.
Yeah, it would have. We could have gotten like the eras, or Brian's color report. Why were they all white balloons?
Yeah, I don't know. Get some rainbow in there.
But that said, I was mostly surprised that they were able to manage the balloonage in the like pit. Like, sorry, this I don't know why I called it the pit, where they were at the start. If like a swift wind would blow them away, like how they met, like were they constantly like pausing to insert new balloons or like re-blow them up if like they just popped in the maybe the 3 at a time gave production time to like replace balloons that had been damaged.
We know production likes putting balls back in the mix, so.
Well, they did say that like once the balloons crossed over, they were still popping, but they were counted, so it was hard to figure out how many balloons each team had. Learned their lesson. Can you believe we've been doing this for 10 years?
Where did that come from?
I was just thinking, as you're talking about like Laurel-Cara like during the challenge, just like I can't believe we're talking about this still. Like, we're still talking about this.
Challenge 50 definitely will still be.
I was like, when do you think like we won't have an opinion? Just be like, I don't know, maybe Car should throw it, whatever. Like,
I think when one of their like kids pops up on a show, maybe that's when we call it. Should we call it at that point?
If Ryder K's on the challenge and we're retired, we're coming out of retirement to talk about it. You're out of your freaking mind.
Oh man,
be so for real.
But yeah, so I have the ordering was era 3, then era 2, then era 4, then era 1. But era 4 wins despite finishing 3rd. Era 1 loses both ways, so they doubly lose.
That's so funny.
But era 3,
Bob
era
and
2,
weave, Bob and weave.
They're the ones in the mix. I know there's a little jump, but Brad had a very funny comment. Who's I think going into the elimination. He's like, "Look, if I can't just win a single challenge or something, I'm just gonna go home." It's like, yep, well, that's where you go.
It's a flight home for sure. But Rachel and Brad going in, I think, do make this deliberation more interesting, probably the most interesting it could have been, because it's like you've got, I think, probably the only pair that could very reasonably both beat Johnny and Laurel. So if you're gonna take the shot, Brad and Rachel being at the other end of that cage is like exactly who you want to feed them to.
Yeah, specifically the Rachel part. For
yeah,
sure.
well, I'm just gonna be nice to your boy, but like, yeah. I mean, more than Corey and Josh, no disrespect. Like,
yeah,
maybe the same as Corey.
It does feel like there's more interesting connections between like eras 2, 3, and 4 that it does help make these decisions more interesting when era 1's always the losers. Because I think there's more interesting connections within era 1, like for the what the hell was the tournament called? The Era Invitational. Like that was very interesting when they had to cannibalize themselves. But they do feel at this point more secluded from the other eras, that the decisions that the other eras would have to make aren't as interesting if era 1's involved. So when 2, 3, and 4 are like voting amongst each other, that feels like when we're getting more of like the which way are they going to go in the chamber?
Yeah, and I mean, so it does make it more interesting, but do you think it's like Bush League that they've been coming in saying they don't have an opinion? Like, should Rachel and Brad, I think last week I felt like it was really an equal spread, but like, should Rachel and Brad be advocating to, I guess, not see Bananas and Laurel? Like, they just come in and are like, we'll take what we could get.
I mean, normally I think it would make sense not to say name when in this type of situation, because you're choosing from like a whole house. But since you're literally just choosing between A and B, you should be able to say like, yeah, I would prefer to do B instead of A, especially when A is Bananas and Laurel. Like, I don't think anyone would take offense to be like, oh, actually, I don't want to go against like the combined 9, 10-time champion of Bananas and Laurel. I'd rather go up against, Corey and John A.
100%. What do you think of Josh's move to go to his team and say, I want this to be a team decision. I love how my team backs me. Like, we're era 4. What do you guys think? And spoiler alert, like, he goes back on what his team wants.
Yeah, it's doing too much. Like, if you're going to do that, you have to, like, be 100% committed to following through. And you shouldn't be committed to following through because you should do what's best for you. Like, it's a big risk when you're, like, that week's target. You want to, like, if you somehow get in a position of power, you would love to be able to leverage it into a deal or two the next time you're in that position. So you shouldn't take your team's advice. And it's just Josh building up promises that he's going to, like, you know, in season 42, he's going to be, oh, well, I'll, you know, in middle of season 40, I kind of went back on my word of, like, who I was going to vote in. And now I have to make up it to, like, Michelle or Olivia or whoever it is. Like, you're doing too much.
You don't have to have been podcasting for 10 plus years to know what era 4 was going to say to him. Like, of course they were going to say, put in Laurel and Bananas. We've got this alliance with era 3. Only Jenny and Josh would have any real motivation to not put in Bananas and Laurel, except for maybe Casey, who's got a connection with Nani, who's connected to Bananas. Like, maybe. But, like, you have to, if you're going to ask your team for input, you either have to need their input or you have to know their input's going to align with what you want to do. Josh should have absolutely known the answer he was going to get and therefore should not have asked the question.
Especially because it's not like the precedent has not been set with this group or this season of, like, everyone time someone wins, they go back to their team and they make a team decision, and it'd be crazy now for them not to do that. Like, that hasn't been the case at all. Everyone's kind of been doing their own thing down there. So it's ridiculous that Josh felt the need to do that.
So in the deliberation, I thought everyone did a pretty good job. I think Corey made a good case. Like, you know, look, we've been working together. Janae is like, I'm a free agent. Like, I've been burned. I don't agree that she was burned, but regardless, like, or that she should have expected that much allyship from them. But, like, I'm a free agent. I could work with you. And they circle back with, like, in conclusion, don't you want to get rid of Bananas and Laurel, who will absolutely obliterate you in the game?
Right.
I thought that was a great pitch from their team.
Yeah, I thought they made a good pitch. I thought, like, Josh being surprised that Bananas would bring up, like, the PTSD of Josh crossing him from USA 2. He's like, oh, Johnny knows how much I struggle with that. How dare he bring that up? It's like, of course he's going to bring it up. He's going to manipulate it to, like, try to get his way and have you feel guilty and do what he wanted to do. It'd be crazy if he didn't bring it up. So that was, again, Josh, like, being overly doing too much, even in the confessional. Like, how dare he bring that time up? I screwed him over.
Yeah, Bananas went into full Galway girl mode because he played a fiddle in an Irish band. He played Josh like a full-blown fiddle. This was, I think, now maybe people will defend this move. It sounds like you think maybe it was best for him or he should do his best for him. I think this was like one of Josh's biggest bozo moments of the show.
Yeah, I think it was hard. No, I think it was a bad decision. They absolutely.
Oh, you mean like in theory he should do what is best for him, but he did not do what was best for him?
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
He should have voted him as Laurel, of course. It's again, especially like Laurel. Like, at this point, I'm almost more afraid of Laurel. It's just like her vengefulness and just like her chaoticness. Like, get her out. Like, they should all want to be getting her out. And if Josh thinks anywhere that Bananas is now his, like, number one, Bananas is always going to do what's best for him, and that's why Josh should do what's best for him.
It's just like, you should never, when you're in a position of power, have someone who needs a favor from you be suggesting that you need to do them that favor to get to 0. Like, Bananas was like, you have the rare opportunity to make amends with me to then get to 0, like, to not even get back in our alliance, but to just show that I could maybe one day learn to trust you again. I was like, thought that was so pathetic. He played Josh right where he lives. Like, he hit him right where he lives. And Josh also, like, not to be outdone, had a long-standing relationship with Corey that I really respect. Corey's response being like, I'm taking it as a shot and I'm going to come back. Then what are you going to do? And, like, I can't wait to see Josh scramble on this one.
Scrambling he will be.
What I will say is when Era 4 confronts Josh, when he, you know, and Jenny say, like, we made our decision to not send in Bananas and Laurel, he's absolutely right to look at Michelle square in the eye and be like, if you were up there with me, it would have been a lot easier to say, I have to do what Michelle wants and she's putting in Laurel. That's 100% correct. And like, Michelle, if you're not going to nominate yourself, which I think is a good move, you kind of can't be upset with who they put in.
Yeah, no, that's totally true. That's totally fair. Especially not even just Michelle's reason to vote in Laurel, but Jenny seems to be like very close to Bananas, so it would make sense for her maybe to want to like keep Bananas around because he seems to be a loyal vote for her. So for her, kind of, there's at least something there. And I guess maybe like all this was a smokescreen, and Jenny was just like, yeah, I'm just not doing that, and I'll be willing to like risk myself going in. And if that's the case, then I don't blame Josh because he shouldn't risk his own game for that.
It's funny. I was more charitable to Brad than I am in my notes because I was like, wow, two people who could actually beat Laurel and Bananas, or at least beat Laurel. No offense, Brad. But I changed my mind on this call.
Right.
I think they both could have won. Ugh.
Yeah, I mean, based off what it was, I guess, theoretically. Although Bananas is like really good at all this stuff, so I feel like he would have smoked this.
I think this was actually, it's so hard to say. Like, I actually don't think Bananas has a lot of friends in this house. Like, I'm just asking myself and you the question, like, was this best for Jenny's game? And honestly, like, Jenny's just kind of be a free agent that's scapegoated by her team, I think, until they shake it up. I don't know where else Bananas really has to go. Like, is Bananas going to like target Jenny? Why? For what and for why? She's a great partner to have in the final.
Mm-hmm.
And her key concern should be getting Laurel out. So I actually don't even know that this was the right move for Jenny either.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, where's Bananas going to go? I guess. Yeah, I don't know. I thought I had a point, but I don't.
Work.
I hate when that
all right. Oh, so they go out, and this is another irritating thing of Laurel. Like, maybe it's like not worth even talking about every time Laurel's irritating, but when she goes to confessional, like, how are we not getting sent in? Like, they're so stupid, they're idiots. Like, because you're up there with Bananas, every single person would send you in. Like, the only reason you're not getting sent in is because Bananas and Jenny don't want to send in Bananas.
Yeah, it's also very frustrating to have like this confessional. And the confessional being like, how dare they put me up as a target? I'm gonna like come back with a vengeance and like scorch her. It's like, stop saying it both ways. Either like it's this, if you believe this, then when you're put up as a target, be like, well, I guess I'll take it as a sign of like respect that they want me out of the house or something like that. Not like you're gonna like go burn their family down or something. Like it's like too much of like the extremes on every side.
So frustrating. So frustrating. All right. So yeah, I mean, not a ton that we haven't talked about, really. We talked about the Bananas and Devin incident. I do like the technique I will borrow of any time I've got beef with someone and I see them, I'll just scream, thin ice. Every time I start a podcast with a Kiva, I'll just scream, thin ice.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty good.
The night out was when I really mostly felt it was dragging because it was just a lot of conversations of being like, I believe in us, we can do this, yada, yada, yada. Let's skip onto it.
Fair.
Do we think?
Yes.
Like, I know it's like TJ asked them at the elimination what their decision is. Is it locked before that? Or if like things blow up at a night out, can they change it?
Because I think like we've seen in the past, the Deliberation people have come out of the Deliberation and been like, we haven't decided yet.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is like the first time. Is it the first time where they've like come out and said who it's going to be?
No, I think it's
Michelle. Well, Michelle did it with like Polly, but that was like the like first fresh meat thing.
Yeah,
I feel like they tend to come out and say,
like Nehemiah last week. I think they were pretty clear. You guys are going in.
I think at the end of the day, in the spirit of it being a production decision, like if it's going to come down to it, like I think Tony said that at least in an interview. Was it with you or someone else? Of like, I thought maybe we'd get there and like they'd ask us again for a decision, and Avery just went right to like, we're split and we're not voting. I think if it like makes good TV, like, yeah, if somebody wants to make a change and like lay it out at the arena, I think it's all fair game.
Yeah, because it just felt like they were like Bananas and Laurel. Like again, they were both saying like, "Oh, it's amazing, we're not going in." But theoretically, like they could still go in, but maybe. Like,
well, I thought that's where that fight was going. Maybe that's
yeah.
why I enjoyed the night out more, because I was like, "Oh, they're all so cocky and they can't believe it and whatever."
Right.
And then a huge blow up's going to happen, and Devin's going to tell Josh, like, do my bidding.
Right.
You were so worried about Michelle, but you should have been worried about Josh. He's now putting you in. But no, alas, it's not. One thing about the arena is, like, I think it's been interesting the last few arenas feel like they don't really clearly favor a person. Like, I haven't known for sure who was going to win, but they're still physical. So I think they've been like a really good mix. Like the Jax was fun. This was fun.
Yeah, this one to the point. Kind of like dodgeball, throwing a ball into a giant, I guess, nail. I wonder, do they think they repurposed some of the nails from the daily and
they
put
looked
them on
a little
this
bigger?
wall?
But yeah, I think definitely like a similar vendor.
Definitely. That would actually be kind of fun if they kept like a theme from like the daily into the elimination every week. Kept them similar. Could be fun.
I'm here for it. I would have liked the balloons over the spikes, but I like the balloons.
The key rule for this one was, if you throw a ball at the nail and it misses, it's not technically out of play yet because it could bounce back. It's only when it gets into the little fenced off area that it is now officially out of play and the ball is no longer up for grabs, which I guess that was the key rule for this one.
Yeah, this was basically like Pie Hard in Mario Party, the minigame, where it's just like, you don't know if you got to throw them at the balls at the spike, but you could play defense or you could play offense. And I think like that little rule incentivized defense. I think in the men's round, it made me more nervous when Corey started like throwing balls away, like the priority just being like dead the most balls if you're in the lead. Kind of rough to do that when you're only up by one, but I think when Rachel was up by a couple, it made more sense. I think that was like a fun balance of offense defense. I really liked this elimination.
Yeah, it was good. The one thing I didn't really like of being able just to throw balls away, that felt like kind of breaking the game a little bit. I almost would have liked it if everyone just had like a set number and you just had like 50 to throw or something like that. I just feel like it's not fun just to watch someone like just toss things aside, and that felt like breaking the game a little bit. I don't think that was ever their intention when they were like the ball's out of play when it's like in the fence. I don't think they had thought someone would just like throw it away just to like get it out of play. But that's okay. I mean, if you're in the league,
I liked it.
Do what you got to do.
I liked it, and I forget if they were able to throw them to the side too. Like in which case
I don't think so. I think you had to you couldn't like just chuck it up into the audience or something like that. You had to like specifically throw it to the fence, and I guess it took like it wasn't just as easy just like rolling it away. You had to like toss it at a certain speed and not like it bounce. So I guess there was some skill to get them away.
And you could still defend against it. I thought it was exciting because it really was like, oh, is this going to be stupid? Because is Brad going to land one more while Corey's throwing all his balls away? Because you also, I think, couldn't cross to the other side. So like to the extent Brad had them on his side, he couldn't cross. So Corey's really just like throwing his own balls away so they don't get back to Corey. So it was a risk. So I was like more on the edge of my seat than I probably would have been if Corey just kept nailing spikes. But yeah, I mean, it could be worked on. I was happy that Corey won ultimately. Tough break for Era 1, tough break for Brad on his return season. It was not a big, it wasn't the most exciting season for Brad, but it probably wasn't as bad as his All-Stars last All-Stars run.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't as bad, but it still wasn't great. I mean, Era 1 lost a lot. He didn't really want to eliminate. Like it wasn't good. It wasn't that good.
It wasn't good.
Yeah. I mean, I was definitely happy Corey won. I'm happy Rachel won. I love John A. Would have liked to see her stay, but if Rachel lost also, then like Era 1's down to 3 people at that point. So that's like kind of a big mess. Even right now they're at 4. Still kind of a mess. But happy for Rachel.
Yeah, it was exciting to watch Rachel do this. Like, she makes light work of it. She's like, oh, I was this 3-sport high school athlete. Yeah, no shit. Like, no surprise. She's a beast.
The one thing Rachel said, the one thing Rachel said that kind of irked me a little bit, she made like a dig at John A. Like, oh, I think John A. just, she cares about the challenge way more than I do. Like, your whole brand is Rachel Fitness. Like, I understand, like, maybe John A. cares about, like, the challenge more, but that felt like a weird comment coming from Rachel.
So that's interesting. I didn't take it as a dig. I took it as sort of like John A. might be motivated to win more and like cares more about that part of it, like it being the show, the challenge, but like I want to be here, I want to win. And I think she's right. Like John A., I think puts a lot more of her sort of like identity into this. Like, I proved this to myself as a mother, like after my rough run on the like with bad partners. Like, I came here and I was like a back-to-back All-Stars champ, and I'd like to prove that I can hack it on like the main show. And Rachel doesn't really need this. Like, she needs the pub, and like, yeah, she's like had partnerships with the challenge in her fitness brand, but like, I don't think Rachel has like a love of the current challenge that's akin to Jonna's like love of it and identity around it. So I didn't take it as like a dig. Maybe it's like not great to hear somebody like suggest that they don't care as much about the show as someone else, but
yeah,
I do think it'd be tough to care more than Jonna cares, and like not in a diggish way, like in a just true way.
That's fair. That's fair.
But I do think like it was a nice arc for Rachel, and like they had a montage of like her being like, this has like reminded me that I do love the challenge and I do still have it, and like this is awesome. And I was like, ooh, star turn for Rachel. Like, is she back? Like, are you back? Or are you just saying like now you've sort of become reinvigorated with the challenge?
Guess we'll see.
We'll see. Team Road Rules, Era 1, the last real worlder goes out. Derek, Darrell, Tina, and Rachel. I mean, that's a squad. Like, if these were teams of 4, I'd be like, that's a squad.
The small but mighty. Matt singing.
I would have thought CT would have been there, but otherwise.
Target decisions.
Yep.
Not a lot of interesting decisions. Era 1, obviously no decision for Tina. Darrell raises his hand, so that's that decision. Era 2 was where there was
the only alternative has a broken leg, so I think potential allegedly.
Yeah, Era 2, there was some decisions to be made. Nehemiah chosen, and then Aviv chosen. Interesting by Corey to not pick a side from the Rachel, the Laurel and Cara. Just like, oh, I'm going to play Switzerland, and I'm going to throw in Aviv. Don't hate that for Corey. He doesn't need more enemies.
Unbelievably, this is Aviv's first time being nominated, and like, you know, Corey again is like, why would he want Cara Maria or Laurel out? This is why it's like good that the opposite genders are doing the targeting. Like, he doesn't want the strongest woman out if he's looking at the final being sort of a more individual or reshuffling game. Yep. So makes sense to me.
Yeah, totally makes sense. Era 3, Nia and Jordan both self-nominate. And then Era 4.
And I just want to shout out Derek and Ryan and the social game and like being aligned with Era 1, who like the women keep winning. Like, shout out, because they've really been making a good run at sort of avoiding being nominated.
Yeah, no, 100%. Good move by them. Smart. Keeping some safety. And Michelle, she self-nominates with Kyland. And I think for Michelle, it's kind of like it's a good group. I think if you're gonna like toss yourself in, obviously like Nia might have the size advantage, but Aviv, Tina, I feel like in this group of like very strong competitors, this is probably the best she could hope for, kind of going into a potential elimination. No Cara, no Laurel, no obviously Emily's out. No, it can't be Jenny. No Rachel. Like, this is as good as you can get probably for Michelle here.
So yeah, there's a couple interesting pair. I agree with you completely on that. Going back to Nia and Jordan for a second, it's interesting because they both nominated and they're I think our first repeat. Oh no, Bananas and Laurel, but like another set of repeat targets. I don't know how Avery gets out of this because the last Era 3 nominees were Nia, Tori, Jonna, and that's it. Avery, I don't think has been in since she won the first elimination, right? Did she beat Amanda?
No, she beat Jody.
Oh. Do I have the targets wrong? All right, whatever. Anyway, so scratch that. Has Theo ever been a target?
Yeah, because he I guess no, maybe not.
Because he went in it with Paulie, but that was like week 1.
That was the Era Invitational.
So Kyland nominating again. If I know anything about Kyland, he's looking at Darrell, Nehemiah, but like, why would he want to go in Jordan? Maybe he thinks there's just no way Eras 3 and 4 will go against each other. That like either Era 3 will win or Era 4 will win.
Probably.
Or they won't lose. Let's say that they won't lose, and that's a pretty good assumption.
Yeah, I mean, if there's not that many like unbreakable pairs here, like of the people that are in this group, like, so I think it could go any way. for
I think
anyone.
I'd also be pretty nervous if I were Kyland and Michelle nominating here, just in general. Like, we get down to 4 people in era 1. We have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. As we still have 24 people. Is that possible?
Probably. I mean, we started with 40, so.
All right, never mind. I was going to say, like, I think what could happen is you're the targets and then the game could shift. And so, like, you've stepped forward, assuming the game is one way, and then you could be like a target and it could shift up. So I'd be kind of nervous as era 1 continues to dwindle. Maybe not yet at 4, but if we go down to just one woman or one man, like, I think I'd start getting worried about a switch up and wouldn't want to be stepping forward.
Right.
Who knows? All right, the drinking game.
Yes, shout out Kyle Picard. We got the results for last week. We did total of 7, 8. 1 CT pro tip for animation confessionals. 3 volunteers to be target. Brad, Corey, and Josh. 2 times the pictures come into life. Johnny talking about her family, and 1 Karma mentioned.
Do we count the alliance name
as what?
Come on, Kyle. Did he flag that? That was the rule I added last week.
No, not added.
Boo hiss.
Well,
just kidding. Thank you.
If you added it last week, that would be for this episode. So we don't have this yet.
Boo hiss me. Boo hiss me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm gonna add anytime somebody makes a sibling analogy or like family analogy, it's obviously inspired by like the Laurel-Cara little sister, big sister thing. But if somebody's just like, you're like a brother to me, like we're like brothers or sisters, or you're, whatever. She's like my little sister.
Anytime they mention where they are. I think this episode they were staring off into the beautiful skyline. Mention the buildings. DJ usually sometimes says at the start of a daily. They mention the country.
Brian, where are they?
They are in Vietnam.
What's funny is like they mention the buildings, but like Brad's like, it looks like Chicago. I don't know if that would count.
Chicago would not count, but I think they said like that's like the tallest building in Vietnam or something.
Oh, okay. All right.
All right. That's episode 6. You can subscribe at robwebsite.com/challenge feed. Subscribe to the YouTube also. If you watch this on YouTube, subscribe to the RHAP YouTube. Follow me on Twitter, _Brian_. TikTok, challenge wrap-ups. Follow you.
Speaking of TikTok, I'm watching a video sent to us by the great Taylor Crampton in the Facebook group of Laurel doing an Instagram live responding. And I'm just going to stop watching it. Don't follow me anywhere. Join us in the Facebook group. Come see that video if you want to see it there. And check out New Girl Old Guy with myself and Akiva Wienerker talking about New Girl with an old guy.
Until next week, episode 7. Have a good one.